Recently, I did a video about the Apple surveillance network. I described an Apple backdoor where Apple HQ can examine the contents of your phone using the AI of the phone to do the work and then secretly pass results of the query to HQ. Now, the reason I bring this up again is that some people who claim to have knowledge of cybersecurity claim that I'm some idiot who doesn't know what I'm talking about, or that I don't understand technology. These people say that it is easy to test if such communications is happening between Apple and the phone, and that unless I can prove such communications, then all I'm giving you is false information. What is not understood is that big tech, like Apple and Amazon specifically, know that hackers want to see how the iPhone talks to HQ, or how AirTags talk to HQ, or how Ring cameras and Amazon Echoes talk to HQ. Apparently, these cybersecurity people didn't watch my video explaining new network communications that can bypass the internet. So if you don't understand how your tests can be bypassed, then you're in the baby stage of understanding cybersecurity, and you better cool your jets and learn a little bit. Not all threats can be tested. I'll explain to you how communications between big tech and devices can be hidden using a secret network. Stay right there. Many threats can't be tested. Why? Because if the threat is a secret, then the only way to find out is A, if the threat creator has a bug, or B, if there's a whistleblower. I've always understood that three-letter agencies have to be able to do mass surveillance because of how the internet itself is built. Everything you do on it can be tracked. But the extent of this mass surveillance was never believed by the common person until Snowden became a whistleblower and showed exactly what these three-letter agencies were doing. So most of the stuff I talk about today wouldn't be believed if not for Snowden. If the approach is that a surveillance method has to be proven in a cybersecurity laboratory in order to be believed, then we are all zucked. We would be living in a wonderland where no one ever does bad things. But the concept of surveillance is secrecy. You're not supposed to know. Just like you don't know exactly what new techniques three-letter agencies have to surveil us. Funded, by the way, by us, the citizens paying the taxes and paying the salaries of these three-letter agency employees. So it's pretty ludicrous when someone attacks me saying that I cannot prove Apple is surveilling us because there's no evidence. Since we cannot scrounge up evidence on secret data, I approach these problems using reverse engineering. Every new tech feature announced by big tech has to be examined based on what the technology can be used for. To assume that big tech will not and cannot do evil is laughable. At Twitter, they were already proven to have been doing evil by suppressing data that could have impacted elections and having three-letter agencies directly involved in censorship and information manipulation in a country with free speech. The technology I want to talk about today is the mesh network, and this impacts the secret communications possible now with many devices. Secret communications that can be instructions for surveillance. There are only two mesh networks that are so prevalent that they operate in likely all urban areas, certainly covering most of the population of the USA. These two mesh networks are the Apple Mesh Network and the Amazon Sidewalk. The mesh network, as I explained in a video from a year ago, is powered by a technology called Bluetooth Low Energy, or BLE. A mesh network allows peer-to-peer communications between devices without the need for any internet. What is unique about BLE mesh networks is that they operate over radio. The precise frequency used is 2.4 gigahertz, near where your Wi-Fi operates. Every modern phone has BLE built in. BLE is available in any device with Bluetooth 4.0 and above, and that's basically any new phone and likely every phone in use in the USA. BLE is also used by Amazon on Amazon Echoes and Ring cameras, which were sold again from this same time period. BLE, as used by these two companies, Apple and Amazon, has very specific characteristics, and as I said, it can be used to bypass the internet. Let's just do a quick review of how this works. You can look at my old video for the deep dive into the details. But in general, devices that have an unlimited power source are in BLE observer mode. These devices listen for transmissions and will interpret the transmissions and forward the transmissions as a repeater. BLE observer nodes are listening devices, but if they resend the messages, they act as a BLE broadcaster. BLE broadcasters send data out directly. Dedicated BLE broadcasters are typically low power. They rely on BLE observers to do the heavy communications work. A BLE observer device will listen and forward the data to the internet or rebroadcast again to other devices. BLE signals typically travel to around a range of 200 feet and can be further outdoors. BLE transmissions are made to be short. They are more about sending quick commands and quick sensor data. BLE is not used to send continuous data like an audio or video stream. The most well-known device that utilizes BLE and the Apple Mesh Network is the Apple AirTag. The AirTag is a BLE broadcaster. It pings a quick message announcing its identity, likely every few seconds. Because the transmissions are very brief, it does not use a lot of power. The BLE observers are the iPhones. Each iPhone listens to the Apple AirTag identifier, and then using the advanced capabilities of BLE, the iPhone can actually triangulate the distance and compass direction of the AirTag in relation to itself. The iPhone then takes this BLE message from the AirTag, wraps it into another message together with the iPhone's location and AirTag relative location, and then sends that to Apple HQ. So in this scenario, the iPhones were used to send BLE messages of another device, the AirTag, which is likely not owned by the same person. This is the most well-known public use of the Apple Mesh Network for messaging. The message then arrives at HQ, and the location of the sending phone and the direction to the target AirTag is then extracted and made available to the owner of the AirTag to determine the location of the AirTag. I won't go into location implications of this technology because I already discussed that in a recent location tracking video. But the main issue here is that there is a communications channel that takes messages from observing the environment and forwards it to Apple. This forwarding of messages can occur without the internet. So an iPhone without a SIM card or Wi-Fi connection can participate in this mesh network and be forwarding messages to Apple via read broadcast of the BLE message. Each iPhone can also be a broadcaster. When you turn your phone off, the phone now does a transmission of an identifier just like an AirTag. In fact, it duplicates the AirTag behavior. Other iPhones then see the BLE broadcast and forwards the message to Apple HQ. Now, this behavior has to be understood clearly. This proves that Apple already has another channel it can use to both send and receive short bursts of information from any iOS device using the Apple Mesh Network. This is the published behavior of BLE as defined in the Bluetooth standards, and it is also publicly acknowledged by Apple. The BLE message itself is encrypted. The negotiations for the encryption used is, per the standard, done out of band, meaning the key exchange is not done inside BLE. This is also part of the published BLE standard. Now let's go back to the people who claim it is easy to prove the traffic between the iOS device and HQ because you can intercept the traffic. And these are the people that say, I am so dumb. The most common approach to isolating traffic between iOS and Apple HQ is first to firewall any communications between the phone and the internet, and then to see if anything is going to some Apple domain, assuming they're not using a secret domain. The next common method is to use a tool like MITM proxy. This tool will allow a hacker to intercept the encrypted TLS traffic between the device and the internet, examine the traffic as long as you put a fake root certificate on the phone. The MITM proxy program in the middle of the network then becomes a trusted device and can see all the traffic. Now, the fairly stupid assumptions made by people who think they are good hackers is that they assume that Apple, Amazon, and Google don't know this. Therefore, these hackers think it is impossible for Apple, Google, or Amazon to keep a secret on these phones. Now, I'm glad that true experts exist in three-letter agencies that know how to keep secrets, or every foreign nation will know everything that big tech is doing. As I just explained, Apple has a channel that can bypass the internet. So if you firewall a device so it doesn't talk to Apple on the internet, it doesn't stop the iOS device from sending AirTag messages directly to Apple. A BLE message is a multicast, meaning that if the phone has a message to send, it will send out a radio message and all the nearby iPhones will rebroadcast the message. This will keep repeating until a TTL or time to live limit is reached. Because it is being sent to so many devices, the chances are that some device will hear this message and forward it to Apple through some internet connection. So to be clear, an internet connection is not necessary to send messages to HQ from the originating device. So putting a firewall on the phone isn't going to work, since any delay in transmission will just get interpreted as the device needing an alternate transmission route. And if the message is important enough and short enough, it can use the Apple Mesh network instead. The message handling of AirTag messages is something we already know about. But what we don't know is if the iOS device is capable of sending any other kind of message to Apple HQ. Specifically, can an iOS device send secret messages to HQ? I wonder. It would be technical ignorance to assume that Apple programmers do not know the existence of the Apple Mesh network and the power of that. But apparently I'm the stupid one, because until Apple states publicly what it can do on the Apple Mesh network, I'm supposed to be quiet and say they can't do that. That's how some of these cybersecurity people want to operate, in ignorance. Now, as I explained in the Apple client-side scanning video, the actual way the client-side scanning would work in a live environment is actually a perfect example of a low-traffic communication. A communication that is perfectly suited for BLE and the Apple Mesh network. It would be secret, it could not be easily intercepted, and it can hide in the middle of all the other active AirTag traffic that's already existing. The way client-side scanning is supposed to work, Apple HQ would send out a request to search for specific types of images, and this would be disseminated in the form of image characteristics. To keep this communication secret, the instructions are sent out as hashes. These are mathematical constructs that would be understood only by the receiving device. In this case, the neural engine of the iPhone. Apple itself claimed that it uses hashes. I'm not inventing this. But these messages, whether in the form of hashes or plain text words, are nothing more than instructions. Find this type of person in a photo doing ABC and wearing DEF and is GHIH and so on. The hashes obscure the intent. No one will know what Apple HQ is searching for based on the hashes. The neural engine examines photos on your devices and looks at the characteristics of your photos. Then it takes notes of these characteristics and converts them into hashes as well into a format that Apple predetermined. This obfuscates what the AI is doing. Now, to form a match, the AI or neural engine simply has to match the hash provided by HQ to the hashes already collected by the iPhone for each image. If there's no match, the device doesn't have to respond. If there's a match, it would be a simple matter to send a signal to Apple HQ via the same network that handles AirTag. It would be undetectable. It's low traffic because only the devices reporting a match would generate traffic. The device does not need to be connected to the internet. And this is important if this is supposed to perform a surveillance function. That's how I would reverse engineer the Apple client-side scanning into the most effective way to surveil the population of phones with the least amount of fuzz and communications, and keep it away from the eyes of supposed cybersecurity experts. It would be stealthy. As you can already see, this easy method, which is already built into the capability of the phone, cannot be intercepted by an MITM proxy. And many beginner cybersecurity people really don't understand the limitations of the MITM proxy. The assumption is that the communications are occurring between Apple and the device via TLS, so the typical TLS certificate system is expected. These cybersecurity people should not work for the state, as they would not be talented enough to create malware for use in the real world. TLS isn't the only way of hiding content. TLS is based on asymmetric encryption with public and private keys. But since the phone is locked up with a private OS, what prevents the phone from talking to Apple using asymmetric encryption? Well, that's not going to be broken by some MITM proxy. Next, if communications are short and perhaps not in real time, like if they're sent in a batch once a day, they would be very hard to detect. So the point is that you cannot possibly be certain you understand all the communications going on between a device and HQ. Malware like Stuxnet and many others work by reassembling themselves on the device based on remote instructions, and then doing delayed responses. For example, being quiet for a month. This made them difficult to find because there was no evidence. I can't imagine the programmers at Apple and Google being dumb. No, sir. If they want to hide something, and especially if it is for the purpose of supporting the surveillance state, they would have to be good at hiding it. The question is, you want to assume that what you can't see and can't detect must not exist? Or will you assume, like me, that if the obvious technology exists, then it is highly likely that that technology will be used? I'm not even mentioning any new technology here. I'm talking about piggybacking the use on something that is already built in. I encourage you to watch my old video on Skynet 2.0, which explains the details of how BLE works. This is a scary technology which has other applications for surveillance. I've mostly focused here on how Apple is likely using it, but Amazon makes its sidewalk technology available to others. And Ring cameras and Echoes have a longer range than an iPhone. What I'm imagining is an environment where battery-operated sensors are placed everywhere in large numbers, for example, to surveil certain people. And all the sensor information would be communicated directly to the Amazon Sidewalk network. These battery-operated devices like AirTags could operate for a year without recharging. Think of motion sensors, device triggers, location trackers, and other things that can be done, and all you have to do is hide these sensors in the environment. Now, these types of devices cannot send lots of data, so audio and video streaming are not part of the BLE capabilities. However, they can be used to turn another audio or device streaming device on and off and save battery by leaving the device mostly off until turned on by a sensor. Communications between a controlling HQ and the devices will occur in a combination of an internet and radio communications. There are lots of scary applications I can imagine that can use this, particularly with robotics and AI, and which is why it reminds me very much of Skynet and the Terminator. Folks, I have privacy products that we make available and help support this channel. We have a Brax 2 privacy phone running on open source Brax OS. We also do flashing services to de-Google other phone models on our store. We have the VPN service Bytes VPN, which features Tor routing, DNS obfuscation, and ad blocking. We have Brax Mail, which is a metadata-free way of doing email where no one knows where the message originated from. These products are on my app BraxMe. Come visit us there. The link is in the description. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.